I've been married to Laura for 7 years, and for the most part it was a solid relationship. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I believed we were doing well. We had a modest house in a suburban neighborhood, two adorable kids who kept us on our toes, and a life that seemed picture perfect. But lately something felt off, though I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. At first, it was slight changes in behavior that caught my attention. Laura, who used to be a stay-at-home mom, had started picking up odd hours at work, often returning home late. She'd brush it off with a casual, "Oh, just some extra shifts to help out the team," or, "You know how it is, babe, things get busy." I wanted to trust her, but there was an unsettling feeling nagging at the back of my mind. Then there was the phone. Laura had always been open with her phone. We laugh about sharing passwords and often joked about who had the better phone plan. But slowly that changed. She started taking her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. I used to think it was cute, her little rituals, but now it felt like she was hiding something. I remember one evening specifically. She was in the shower and her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Normally, I'd just ignore it, but out of curiosity, I picked it up and saw a message pop up from a contact named Jess. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." That word, babe, struck me hard. Laura had never referred to friends or colleagues with such an intimate term. My gut turned, but I didn't act on it immediately. I convinced myself it was harmless, that I was just being paranoid. After all, who was I to go snooping through her messages? I didn't want to be that guy, but those nagging doubts kept growing, and my heart raced every time I thought of her with someone else. Then one day, I got a text from Laura asking if I could pick up dinner because she'd be late again. I decided to head home first, give her a surprise, and maybe we could enjoy a nice dinner together. I pulled into our driveway and noticed her car wasn't there. That was odd. I checked my watch. It was well past the time she usually got off work. That's when the panic started creeping in. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Now I was starting to feel queasy. After waiting about 20 minutes, I decided to check her favorite bar down the street. It was just a gut feeling, but as I parked outside and walked in, I was hit with a wave of disbelief. There she was, laughing and flirting with a guy I'd never seen before. They were sitting close at the bar, her head thrown back in laughter as he whispered something in her ear. The betrayal cut deep. Confrontation wasn't something I was prepared for. I stood frozen for a moment, watching her, the woman I loved, completely unaware of my presence. Suddenly, anger bubbled to the surface. I stormed over, heart pounding, demanding to know what the hell was going on. The look on her face when she saw me was a mix of shock and guilt. "Mark, what are you doing here?" she stammered, quickly distancing herself from the guy next to her. "Are you kidding me, Laura? You said you were working late." My voice was loud, drawing the attention of the other patrons. The guy stood up, clearly displeased with my presence. "Just relax, we were just hanging out," she said, but the way she said it I could tell she was lying through her teeth. "Hanging out, really? Is that what you call this?" I gestured between her and the guy, who looked uncomfortable and quickly backed away from the scene. The excuses started pouring out. "It's not what it looks like, Mark. I swear we were just talking." But I wasn't buying it. My heart felt like it was being torn apart right there in front of everyone. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train. Shock, anger, and deep-seated hurt flooded my system. This was the woman I thought I could trust, and here she was, betraying me in the worst way possible. As I stood there, the realization that our entire marriage could be built on lies settled in. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but there was also this sinking feeling of sadness creeping in. How could she do this to me? How could she do this to our family? I needed to get out of there to think, but my legs felt heavy. I finally turned and walked out, the sound of her frantic voice calling after me fading into the background noise of the bar. My heart raced, and my mind was a whirlwind of emotions, each one crashing down harder than the last. I drove home in a daze, my thoughts swirling as I tried to process everything. This was just the beginning. I needed a plan. I needed to understand the depth of this betrayal, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had been wronged, and it was time for me to take control of the situation. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal lingering in my gut. The house felt empty when I got home. even with the kids asleep in their rooms. I stood in the living room, staring at the pictures we had on the wall, smiling faces, happy memories. It all felt like a facade now. Laura came home later that night, and I pretended to be asleep, hoping she'd think I didn't know what happened. The days that followed were torturous. I tried to act normal around the kids and maintain our daily routine, but my mind was consumed by thoughts of Laura and her affair. I found myself replaying every moment in detail in my head. The laughter, the intimate whispers, it was like a movie on repeat, and I was the unwilling audience. She tried to talk to me. At first, it was casual, asking me about my day or if I'd seen the kids' latest art projects. Then it escalated to her asking if I was upset about something. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she wouldn't confess. It was as if she was afraid to admit her wrongdoing. I needed evidence. I had to pinpoint how deep this went, so I started keeping an eye on her. I began tracking her movements, noting the times she left for work, when she got back, and her sudden obsession with her phone. I'd watch her texts, trying to decipher who Jess was. Was she really just a friend, or was she someone more? One evening, I decided to confront her again. I waited until the kids were in bed, and I could feel my heart racing in anticipation. I sat on the couch, the dim light from the lamp casting shadows across the room. Laura came in and sat down next to me, her expression cautious. "Mark, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice tinged with a hint of anxiety. "Everything is not okay, Laura. You need to tell me the truth about Jess," I said, trying to keep my tone steady, but I could hear the tremor in my voice. "What do you mean?" she replied, feigning ignorance. Her eyes darted away from mine, and I knew she was lying again. "I saw you with that guy at the bar. You can't keep pretending that it was nothing," I pressed, leaning closer, hoping to coax the truth out of her. Her reaction was immediate. She recoiled, biting her lip as if trying to suppress something. "It was just a mistake, Mark. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was feeling so lost, and I wasn't thinking straight," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Lost? You thought flirting with another man was the answer. You shattered everything we built together." I felt the anger boiling over, but there was also a deep sadness creeping in. I wanted to shake her, to make her understand the weight of her actions. "No, no, I love you, Mark. I felt neglected, and things at home haven't been great. It was a stupid mistake," she pleaded, her eyes pleading. "Neglected? Then why didn't you come to me? Why not talk to me instead of betraying our vows?" I yelled, the frustration spilling out. "Do you even understand the impact this has on our family?" She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and I could see the guilt washing over her. "I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make this right. Just please don't leave me," she said, her voice breaking. "I need time to think," was all I replied, retreating to our bedroom, leaving her crying on the couch. I felt guilty for not comforting her, but I needed to process everything. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was trapped in a nightmare. The next few days turned into a blur. I dropped the kids off at school, went to work, and tried to act like everything was okay. But in the back of my mind, I was formulating a plan. I needed to know the extent of her betrayal, and I intended to find out. I contacted a private investigator, someone who could give me the hard facts. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I needed to know if this was just a fling or something more serious. I felt a mix of desperation and anger as I made the call, but deep down, I knew it was the only way to get to the bottom of this. While I waited for the investigator to gather information, I kept my suspicions growing. I noticed Laura's behavior changing again. She seemed more cautious, but also more desperate to please me. She started cooking my favorite meals, suggesting family outings, and doing everything she could to mend the rift between us. But none of it felt genuine. It felt like a cover-up, a way to smooth over the cracks in our foundation. One night, as I lay in bed next to her, I listened to her breathing, wondering if I could ever trust her again. I wanted to believe her when she said she loved me, but the reality of her actions haunted me. I wondered if this was just the calm before the storm, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then, just as I was beginning to think I could consider forgiving her, the investigator called. "Mark, we've got some information for you," he said, his tone serious. My heart dropped. I knew that whatever he had to say would change everything. Go ahead, I replied, bracing myself for the worst. Laura, been seeing someone regularly. It looks like it's been going on for a while now, he said, and I felt my stomach churn. Who is it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. His name is Derek. I have photos and timestamps of their meetings, and it's worse than you think. I felt my world tilt. All those moments I thought I could trust her, all those times I tried to believe she was just working late or hanging out with friends, crumbled before my eyes. This wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was a full-fledged affair. Send me everything you have, I managed to say, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. I needed to confront her again, but this time it was going to be different. This time I had the evidence. I hung up the phone, anger coursing through my veins. The plan for revenge began to take shape, and I felt an eerie sense of calm wash over me. Laura was going to pay for this betrayal, and I wouldn't let her get away with it any longer. The next few days dragged on like an eternity. Each time I walked past Laura, my heart tightened with anger and betrayal. She was blissfully unaware that I had been gathering evidence against her, and the facade she wore only fueled my determination to confront her with the truth. I was gripped by a sense of urgency, knowing I had to prepare for the inevitable showdown. Once I received the photos and detailed reports from the investigator, I realized just how deep Laura's deception ran. The images were grainy, but the evidence was clear. Laura meeting Derek repeatedly, out at restaurants, and even one shot of them embracing outside a bar. My heart ached at the sight, but I knew I had to use it to my advantage. I decided to confront her on a Saturday evening. The kids were staying at their grandparents' for the weekend, giving us a rare moment of privacy, but I felt anything but peaceful. I planned everything meticulously, even down to the way I would set the mood for the conversation. I wanted her to be comfortable but also aware that it was serious. Around dinner time, I set the table and prepared a nice meal. As I stirred the pasta sauce, I could feel the tension building in my chest. Should I let her enjoy the meal first, or should I get right to the point? I decided on the latter. I didn't want to prolong the inevitable. Laura came home in a flurry of energy, her face lighting up as she entered. "Wow, it smells amazing. You really went all out," she exclaimed, clearly excited. "Thanks. We need to talk, though," I said, trying to keep my tone even. I watched as her smile faltered slightly, her eyes narrowing, sensing the seriousness of my tone. "Okay, what about?" she replied, sitting down at the table, her demeanor shifting from playful to apprehensive. I served us both dinner, the silence hanging heavily in the air. I took a deep breath, prepared for the confrontation. "I know about Derek," I said flatly, looking directly into her eyes, her brow furrowed as she put down her fork, the color draining from her face. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I hired a private investigator. I have photos of you two together. This isn't just a misunderstanding or a fling, it's been going on for a while." I slid the photos across the table towards her, watching as she picked them up, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. "Mark, I can explain. Please just hear me out," she pleaded, panic rising in her voice. "I don't need an explanation, Laura. I see the truth right here." I gestured to the photos, feeling an unexpected sense of satisfaction coursing through me. But it wasn't supposed to happen this way. It was just a moment of weakness. She cried, her eyes welling up with tears. "I thought we were drifting apart, and I was lonely. Lonely. You chose to betray me instead of talking to me." My voice rose, and I could feel the hurt swelling within me like a tidal wave. "You didn't even try to talk about what was wrong. You went behind my back." "I know I messed up," she screamed, her emotions boiling over. "But I love you, Mark. I made a stupid mistake. Can't we fix this?" "Fix it," I echoed, disbelief coating my words. "How can we fix something built on lies? You destroyed my trust, Laura. You shattered our family for what? A few moments of excitement. I was searching for something I thought I lost, and I didn't want to lose you too," she sobbed, visibly shaken. I felt anger and heartbreak intertwining within me. How could she say that? It was clear she had been living a double life, and now faced with the consequences, she was trying to manipulate my feelings. "You've lied to me repeatedly. You put your needs before our family, your kids. What am I supposed to do with that?" "I'll do better, I promise. I'll go to therapy. We can work through this," she begged, tears rolling down her cheeks. The emotional turmoil in me surged. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope we could somehow patch together the wreckage of our marriage. But deep down, another part screamed at me, reminding me of all the trust that had been broken. I leaned back in my chair, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. You have to understand that trust is earned, not just given, I said finally, my voice steady despite the whirlwind inside me. You've thrown that trust away, and now I need to think about what's best for our family. I can't just sweep this under the rug. I know I've messed up, but I love you. Please don't throw everything away because of one mistake. She cried, desperation etched in her features. What you call a mistake is a choice, Laura. You chose to cheat on me, I replied, feeling my heart harden with every word. You made that decision, and now you have to face the consequences. The room fell silent, the tension thickening in the air. Laura was sobbing uncontrollably, and it broke my heart to see her like that, yet I knew I had to keep my resolve firm. Maybe we need time. Apart, I need to think clearly away from the chaos, I said, my voice softer now. Time apart, she whispered, her face crumpling. You can't be serious. I'm dead serious. I need to figure out what I want, and I can't do that with you here. I need space to process everything. Her face fell, and I could see the panic rising in her eyes. Mark, please don't do this. I can change. I'll do anything to make it right. She pleaded again. Laura, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't know if I even want to, I said, feeling the weight of my words. The decision was excruciating, but I had to stand my ground. As I watched her break down in tears, my heart ached for the woman I had once loved fiercely. But I couldn't ignore the gaping wound in our relationship. I knew I had to protect myself and our kids, even if it meant losing her. I'll stay at a friend's place for a while, I said, standing up from the table. I think it's best if you have some time to reflect on what you've done. I need to figure out what comes next. I turned and walked away, leaving Laura sobbing at the table. The emotional impact of the confrontation weighed heavily on my heart as I stepped into the living room, my mind racing with thoughts of the path ahead. I had made my decision, but the reality of it felt like a nightmare I couldn't escape. I didn't want to hurt her, but I knew that staying in a broken relationship wasn't an option either. I needed to focus on what was best for me and the kids. As I grabbed my bag and headed out the door, I felt a flicker of determination. I was going to take control of my life, and Laura would finally understand the weight of her choices. I wasn't going to let her betrayal define me. This was just the beginning of a long journey ahead, and I was ready to face it head-on. The first few days of my self-imposed exile were surreal. I stayed at my buddy Chad's place, a small apartment he rented downtown. It was a stark contrast to the home I'd shared with Laura, a place filled with memories of laughter, family dinners, and playful chaos from our kids. But the solitude I found at Chad's was a welcome reprieve. I needed space to think and process everything that had shattered in my life. Chad was great. He didn't pry too much, knowing I was going through a storm. He offered me a beer and let me vent whenever I felt the need. I spent hours talking about the affair, how Laura's betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, and how I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that she had willingly hurt our family. Man, you did the right thing, Chad said one night as we sat at his kitchen table. You can't go back to that. You deserve better. I appreciated his support, but there were still moments when I felt like I was drowning in a sea of emotions. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I missed our kids, missed the routine, but being away from Laura felt like a necessary step. I refused to be a doormat, sweeping her infidelity under the rug just to keep the peace. After a week of reflection, I finally decided it was time to talk to Laura again. I knew I couldn't avoid her forever, and I needed to face the situation head-on. I called her and set a time to meet at a small cafe halfway between our homes. The idea of seeing her again filled me with a mix of dread and determination. When I arrived at the cafe, I saw her sitting at a table outside, fiddling with a napkin. She looked different, disheveled, with dark circles under her eyes, but there was a glimmer of hope in her expression that made my heart ache. I took a deep breath and walked over, the tension palpable. "Hey," I said, my voice steady but cautious. "Mark," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm glad you came. I sat down, and for a moment we both just stared at each other, the weight of our shared pain hanging heavily in the air. "How are you holding up?" I asked, trying to break the ice. I'm I'm struggling," she admitted, tears pooling in her eyes. "I miss you and the kids. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize how selfish I was. I can't believe I let things get that far." "Laura, do you understand the magnitude of what you did?" I asked, feeling the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "It wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice you made over and over again." "I know, I can't explain why I did it. I was feeling lost, and instead of coming to you, I sought comfort in the wrong place," she said, her voice trembling. "But I understand now that I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make it right." Her vulnerability caught me off guard. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to think that she was truly remorseful, but another part of me remained cautious. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. "You say you're sorry, but I need to know that you're fully committed to making this right. This has to change. I can't keep living in doubt," I said, my tone firm. "I'm willing to go to therapy. I want us to go together," she said, her eyes pleading. "I want to understand why I did this and how we can move forward. I love you, Mark, and I want to fight for our family." I wanted to see sincerity in her eyes, but I also had to protect myself. "Love isn't enough," I replied, feeling my heart waver. "You've hurt me deeply, and it's going to take more than just words to fix this. I need time to process everything." "Take all the time you need," she said, her voice cracking. "I'll be right here waiting. I just want the chance to prove to you that I can change." As we talked, I started to see remnants of the woman I fell in love with, but I was also acutely aware that the damage done was significant. The idea of reconciling felt both hopeful and terrifying. Could I forgive her? Could we rebuild from the ashes of betrayal? After we finished our drinks, I knew I had to set some boundaries. "For now, I think it's best if we keep our distance. I need to focus on myself and figure out what I want moving forward," I said, my voice steady. "If you're serious about therapy, I want you to start as soon as possible, and we can revisit this conversation down the line." "Okay," she responded softly, tears streaming down her face. I could see the pain etched in her features, but part of me was relieved. I had taken a step towards clarity, and for the first time I felt like I was regaining control of my life. As I left the cafe, I felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. I could only focus on the future, on what I wanted for myself and my kids. I needed to put their happiness above everything else, and that meant being honest with myself about whether or not I could rebuild a relationship with Laura. The emotional journey ahead would be long and complicated, but I was ready to face it. I knew I had to prioritize my own healing and well-being. If Laura was truly committed to change, I would be open to exploring that possibility, but it would take time. The following week, I made an appointment with a therapist for myself. I needed to process my feelings and learn how to navigate the complexities of my marriage and its current state. I wanted to understand how to cope with the pain of betrayal and what it meant for my future. As I began my sessions, I found solace in talking things through with a professional. I shared my feelings about Laura, the kids, and the emotional chaos swirling in my mind. It was liberating to express the pain and confusion I felt, and gradually I began to find some clarity. During one session, my therapist asked me an important question. "What is it that you truly want, Mark? What do you envision for your future?" That question lingered in my mind long after our session ended. I realized that I wanted to create a stable and loving environment for my kids, whether that meant repairing my marriage or moving on entirely. I wanted to prioritize my own happiness and peace. As I continued to reflect on my feelings, I also kept in touch with Laura periodically. She seemed to be genuinely putting effort into her therapy, and I could see glimpses of the woman I once loved. Yet I knew the next steps would be crucial. The emotional roller coaster was far from over, but I was learning to navigate the ups and downs. I was beginning to find my footing again, and regardless of the outcome with Laura, I was determined to emerge stronger. It was time to face the reality of our situation. Would I be able to forgive her and work towards a future together, or was it time to let go and start anew? The answers were still unclear, but I was ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As the weeks passed, I found myself in a constant state of reflection. I was deeply engrossed in therapy, trying to untangle the emotional mess that had taken over my life. Each session offered me a safe space to explore my feelings, my anger, and my heartache. I learned more about myself than I ever anticipated, especially how to set boundaries and prioritize my well-being. Meanwhile, Laura was continuing her therapy as well. We had agreed to check in with each other periodically, but the conversations were carefully navigated. She spoke of her progress, how she was working through her feelings of loneliness, and how she was trying to understand the root of her actions. I could sense she was genuinely trying, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh, making it difficult for me to fully open up to her. One evening she texted me, asking if we could meet at the park where we used to take the kids. It was a place filled with happy memories, and I hesitated. Did I want to revisit that space, or was it too soon? But I ultimately agreed, knowing we needed to continue communicating. When I arrived at the park, I saw her sitting on a bench, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety. I walked over, taking a seat beside her, and we shared a moment of silence, both of us enveloped in memories of the past. "Thanks for coming," she said softly, her eyes searching mine. "I wanted to talk about where we go from here." "Okay," I replied, trying to remain neutral. I was still processing everything, and I wasn't sure what I wanted from this conversation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she continued. "I care about you so much, and I want to rebuild what we had. I know it won't be easy, but I'm committed to doing the work." I could feel the sincerity in her voice, but doubt still lurked in my mind. "Laura, I appreciate that you're willing to work on yourself, but the truth is, rebuilding trust will take time. I'm still hurt, and I need you to understand that." "I know," she said, nodding. "I don't expect everything to go back to normal right away. I just want the chance to prove myself to you. I love you, Mark." Hearing her say that still tugged at my heartstrings. Part of me longed to believe her, but another part reminded me of the reality we were facing. "Love isn't enough," I said gently, choosing my words carefully. "You've broken my trust in a way that's going to take more than just saying you love me to fix." "I understand. I just want to show you that I'm serious about this," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I've started attending a support group for people who struggle with relationship issues. I want to learn how to communicate better, to be more open with you. I've realized I can't keep running away." I was impressed that she was taking steps to address her behavior, but I couldn't ignore the lingering doubts in my mind. "It sounds like you're making progress, but I need to see consistent change. This is about both of us, and we need to work together if we want to move forward." "Absolutely. I want to work together. I miss our family, and I miss the life we built," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "I want to be a better wife and mother." As we talked, I couldn't help but notice the small shifts in her demeanor. The guilt and shame that had previously clouded her expression seemed to dissipate a little as she discussed her commitment to change. Yet, I remained cautious. It felt as if we were walking a tightrope, and I wasn't sure if I could follow her down that path yet. "Let's take this slow," I suggested. "I think it would be best if we focus on ourselves for now and see where that leads. I'm willing to keep the lines of communication open, but I can't rush back into a relationship." "Of course," she replied, relief washing over her face. "I'll do whatever it takes. Just being here with you means so much to me." As we continued to talk, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps this was a turning point. Maybe we could rebuild from the ashes of betrayal, but I knew it wouldn't be quick or easy. Trust was a fragile thing, easily shattered and difficult to restore. Days turned into weeks, and as I resumed my routine, I also made a conscious effort to be present for our kids. They were my priority, and I wanted to ensure they felt loved and secure amidst the upheaval. I'd pick them up from school, take them to activities, and enjoy the small moments of joy that parenting brought. It reminded me of what was truly important in life. Laura continued to reach out, sending me small updates about her therapy progress and how she was working on herself. I appreciated her efforts, but I was still guarded. I knew she needed to demonstrate a commitment to change, but I also had to focus on my own healing. One evening, I received an unexpected message from Laura asking if we could meet again. My heart raced, uncertain of what she wanted to discuss this time. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop, and as I entered, I saw her sitting at a corner table, a nervous smile on her face. "Hey," she said, her voice a bit shaky. "I have something important to share." "Okay," I replied, taking a seat. "What's on your mind?" "I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and I realized that I need to be completely transparent moving forward. I want to tell you everything about my relationship with Derek," she said, pausing to gather her thoughts. "I think it's essential for both of us to move forward." I was taken aback by her request. "Are you sure you're ready for that? It could be painful to revisit those memories." "I am. I believe it's necessary, and I want you to know that I'm not hiding anything from you anymore," she said, determination in her eyes. "All right. If this is what you want, then I'm willing to listen," I replied, preparing myself for whatever revelations lay ahead. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Derek was someone I met at work. We started talking as friends, and I felt this connection. I know now that it was wrong to seek validation outside of our marriage, but I didn't realize it at the time. It escalated quickly, and before I knew it, I was lying to you." As she spoke, I felt a mix of anger and empathy. I wanted to understand her feelings, but hearing the details of her affair felt like digging into a wound that was still fresh. "I thought I could find happiness elsewhere instead of addressing my issues with you. I was selfish and cowardly," she continued. "But I want you to know it never meant as much to me as what we have. I've always loved you, and I realize now how deeply I hurt you." Her words hung in the air, and the pain of her betrayal tightened around my chest. I fought against the surge of emotions, trying to process everything she was saying. "It hurts to hear you say that, Laura. This isn't easy for me. I understand. I'm sorry for putting you through this. I want you to know that I'm committed to rebuilding our relationship, but I also know it's going to take time," she said gently. "Time is what we need, but I still need to process this," I replied, feeling the weight of the conversation. "I appreciate your honesty, but trust isn't something I can just hand back to you." "I know," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Just give me a chance to show you that I can earn it back." As we finished our conversation, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could find a way forward, but I knew the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. I had to prioritize healing for myself and our kids, and I had to be cautious about what it meant to move forward with Laura. I left the coffee shop feeling a mix of emotions: relief, apprehension, and a flicker of hope. The journey of healing was just beginning, and I was willing to navigate it, one step at a time. As the weeks turned to months, the path I was walking with Laura became clearer, but it was also riddled with emotional potholes. We found ourselves in the delicate process of rebuilding our relationship. It felt like walking on glass. One wrong move, and everything could shatter again. But it was also a path I was learning to navigate, with each step teaching me something new about forgiveness, trust, and love. Laura remained dedicated to her therapy, and I could see she was making an effort to change. She was more open and communicative, often sharing her thoughts and feelings, which helped ease some of my concerns. I, too, was continuing my therapy, focusing on my healing and learning how to express my feelings without fear of retribution or misunderstanding. One evening, while we were both at home after putting the kids to bed, Laura turned to me, her expression serious yet hopeful. "I've been thinking a lot about what rebuilding means for us. I want to suggest we start having weekly check-ins, just you and me, to see how we're doing, share our feelings, and make sure we're both on the same page." I appreciated the initiative. It showed that she was willing to put in the work to maintain our connection. "That sounds good. I think we both need that," I replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. As we began our weekly check-ins, I found it beneficial. It provided a safe space for us to discuss our thoughts and feelings openly. Laura would share her progress in therapy, and I would express my fears, doubts, and moments of anger that still lingered. Through these conversations, we slowly started to reforge our connection. It wasn't easy. There were moments when old wounds resurfaced, and I'd feel the familiar pang of betrayal. But we learned to face those moments together, working through the pain instead of letting it fester. One day, as I was cleaning up after dinner, I noticed Laura sitting at the kitchen table, lost in thought. I approached her, sensing something was on her mind. "What's going on?" I asked gently. "I've been thinking about our family and how much I've missed everything being normal," she said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I know it's going to take time, but I really want us to be a family again, not just for the kids, but for us too." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. I wanted that too, but the shadow of her betrayal still loomed large. "You have to understand, Laura, that normal might look different now. We can't just go back to how things were before," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "I know, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to create a new normal, one that's built on honesty and trust," she replied passionately. "I just need you to meet me halfway." Her words resonated with me, and I realized she was genuinely trying to find a way forward. We were both taking baby steps towards healing, and I couldn't deny that there was hope flickering inside me. "I'm willing to try, but you need to keep being honest with me," I said, my voice firm yet tender. "No more secrets." "Absolutely. No more secrets," she echoed, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. As time went on, I noticed gradual changes in our family dynamic. The laughter began to return to our home. We started taking family outings again, going to the park, visiting museums, and enjoying game nights. The kids thrived in this environment, and seeing them happy reminded me of the joy we once shared. With each passing day, I found my heart slowly softening towards Laura. It was a journey of rediscovery, not just of her but of who we were as a couple. There were still moments of doubt, and there were days when my heart felt heavy remembering the betrayal, but I found solace in the fact that we were actively working on our relationship. One evening, after a family dinner filled with laughter, I found myself sitting on the couch with Laura. The kids had gone to bed, and we had a rare moment of quiet. "I never thought we'd come this far," she said, breaking the silence. "I mean, after everything that happened, I thought we were done for good." I nodded, reflecting on our journey. "It hasn't been easy, but I think we're both learning a lot about ourselves and each other. I can see the effort you're putting in, and it means a lot to me," I replied, my tone sincere. "I just want to be the partner you deserve," Laura said softly, her eyes glistening with earnestness. "And I want to show you that I can be that person." "I appreciate that, Laura, but it's going to take time. I need to see continued growth," I cautioned, reminding myself and her that we were still navigating the complexities of our relationship. "I'm committed to doing the work. I'll never give up on us," she affirmed, and for the first time in a long time I believed her. The weeks turned into months, and as we continued our weekly check-ins, I felt a shift within myself. I was learning to forgive, not just for Laura but for myself. It was a liberating feeling to let go of the resentment that had weighed me down. One day, during a particularly emotional check-in, I shared my fears of repeating the past. What if we fall back into old patterns? What if something happens again? I asked, my voice wavering. Laura reached out, taking my hand in hers. "We can't predict the future, but what we can do is keep talking, keep being honest, and keep working on our relationship. I believe we can build something stronger than before." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I realized I was beginning to trust her again, albeit cautiously. It was a fragile trust, but it was there, and I was willing to nurture it. The day finally came when I felt ready to take a leap of faith. Laura and I were sitting on the porch one evening watching the sunset. I turned to her, feeling a sense of hope. "I think I'm ready to fully commit to us again," I said quietly. "I want to try to rebuild our future together." Laura's face lit up with joy, tears forming in her eyes. "Really? Are you sure?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, but it's going to take time and we need to keep doing the work," I replied, my heart steady. "I'm ready," she said, a beautiful smile breaking through her tears. And at that moment, I truly believed her. In the end, I learned that healing takes time, effort, and vulnerability. It wasn't just about moving on. It was about creating a new foundation for our relationship, built on trust and communication. I realized that while the past would always be there, it didn't have to dictate our future. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. We were embarking on a challenging journey, but I was ready to face it alongside Laura, hand in hand. Life was uncertain, but together we could create a new story, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.